Just making sure all the technology is working here. All right, that looks like that's up and working. Right. Excellent. Okay. Hopefully everything works out better than last week when I tried to do one of these, because I'm not at a hotel and I don't have to depend on hotel Wi-Fi. So fingers crossed, Wi-Fi in my office works really well today. Hello everyone, Jenny Ponzurek here. All right, for those of you who are new to me, my background's in school psychology, been a school psychologist for over 20 years, worked directly in the schools for a number of years before trying my hand in administration. And then I have been hanging out on my own, independent of any specific school district for, gosh, we're coming up on 7 years now. So crazy. So nowadays I provide lots of trainings on topics ranging from learning disabilities to dyslexia and report writing. I also love to help support some of my local school districts with some overflow assessments. So went to an IEP meeting this morning, have kids I need to test, finish reports. I still get to do that as well. So I thought I wanted to just chat with everyone today about some behavior tips. Now, I'm well aware for some of you, you're on winter break, and excellent. Good for you for being on winter break. For those of you who are on winter break, this might be something helpful for you to kind of listen when we come on back, because a lot of same things come up right when we come back after winter break, which is, it's like our students were never taught how to behave correctly in school, right? But for those of you who still have an extra couple of days, this can be a really rough week sometimes, right? Those last couple of days before the winter break, our students are really struggling. They're having a hard time remember any sort of behavioral expectations. Our teachers are counting down the hours just as much as the students are. Plus, a lot of times this week, if we're still in school, and for those of you who last week was your last week, you guys had this then, we've got like parties and performances we're practicing, and our schedule's really off. And so a lot of times we see a lot more behavioral concerns. It's like everyone just kind of gets ramped up a little bit here. So just wanted to share a couple of quick tips here on a Monday afternoon. So I think one of the important things is just reminders of the expectations. I know sometimes educators get very frustrated at students because they're not doing the expected behavior that they used to be able to do. And so I think sometimes just having those couple of moments at the beginning of either the period or beginning of right after recess or right after lunch, just reminding people what those expectations are. And I think this is really important when we come back from a winter break. So whether you and your staff have 2 weeks off or 3 weeks off, a lot of times we do remind teachers that this is a really good time to remind all of our students about all of our procedures and everything like that. We cannot expect that those 2 to 3 weeks off for winter break, that they've been practicing those skills in the home setting, right? So I think tip number one is just make sure we're just reminding all of our students of expectations in a very kind of proactive kind of way. Because I think sometimes educators can get really frustrated because, again, there's a lot of emotions going on and a lot of, just maybe emotions is the right word I wanted to use there, that sometimes we can be very focused on just giving consequences and forgetting about just being proactive as well. So it could be a nice helpful reminder. Second thing I think is always important is that when we're having behavioral difficulties, whether we're having new ones because it's the week before winter break, or we're having new ones because we just came back from winter break, or we're just having some new behaviors, is always remembering the why. Right? That why is a really important piece when we're looking at behavior. And it makes me think about some of the recent posts I've seen on some of the school psych Facebook groups that I'm a part of. And someone will ask, oh, I'm looking for some behavioral strategies for this behavior. And I love that the first couple of responses are always, why do you think that behavior is occurring? Right? Because if we think that's occurring because the kid's trying to get attention versus if the kid's trying to escape something versus the kid has sensory overload because we're completely out of our routine because it's the week before winter break. That can really help us figure out how we might want to address the difficulty there. And so a lot of times I know teachers and principals, how can we fix this? How can we fix this? And a lot of times, the more we ask just a couple of those questions, it can really help us make sure that we're targeting our suggestions when we're doing that consultation as best as possible. All right, I told you these are quick tips today. The other thing that I think is really helpful to kind of keep in mind for a lot of our students is really figuring out, especially for our students who have like some of these multiple behaviors going on. It's not just this one thing that just all of a sudden is happening the week before winter break. Is really trying to see it from the standpoint, do we think that there's a skill deficit or do we think there's a performance deficit? So what do I mean by that? Sometimes our students are impulsive and they know they're supposed to raise their hand and they're not raising their hand, right? They need the reminders. Again, at this time of the year, there might be a lot of just kind of increased emotions in the air. And so we kind of forget about the things that we were previously taught, but we actually know we're supposed to raise our hand, right? Versus some of our kids who just still don't know you're supposed to raise your hand, right? So I think about this a lot when I think about our students with executive functioning difficulties, is trying to figure out, do they not know how to do this skill, one of the executive skills like planning or organizing or time management, or do they just not have a good understanding of when I'm supposed to call on that skill, right? So one of the things I think about for myself is, I will say that even though the one school district that I'm really helping to support right now, they actually still have a couple more days left to go this week. But overall, like my work has really kind of slowed down. I've had a lot more time kind of just not going from thing to thing to thing to thing, which has been really nice. Today alone, I was able to create some content. I was able to do some planning, like some wonderful things. I was so excited today. I got so much done. But when I'm really stressed, when I haven't gotten enough sleep, when there's way too much to do, a lot of times there's a performance deficit. So let's say, for example, I find that like I'm a really good organized person. I love a good to-do list. I love starting my day with a to-do list. I love starting my week with to-do lists. This is how like great things have been going for me in the last couple of hours, days. Is yesterday on a Sunday, I actually sat down and I wrote down on a piece of paper every day for this week, what was my schedule, like what were my appointments, and what's on my to-do list. And I have it all ready to go for the whole week. It was so amazing when I came into my office on Monday morning, like I already had it ready to go. Like I was ready to add something if something came up, but I already had things ready to go. Like this is ideal time management and planning for me. But if you had asked me to do this a week ago, no. But it's not a skill deficit. I know how to organize. I know how to do to-do lists. For me, it's a performance deficit in that case, right? And so having someone sit down with me and go, Jenny, let's talk about organization would not have been helpful, right? It's another way to think about how I or our students might need support, right? Do we need to change some things about the environment? Do we need to change some things about the way the adults interact with kids versus do I have to actually teach the skill, right? Really trying to figure out, is this a skill deficit or a performance deficit? I think can be a really helpful question. Again, when I'm thinking about consulting with a lot of my teachers who are noticing a lot of different things with students, do we feel like they don't have the skills and we need to focus on the teaching? Or do we feel like there's just some environmental things that maybe we need to be working on, right? Or sometimes a combination of both, right? Okay, so 3 quick little tips today, and I have to say one of the things that I was working on today, many of you know I'm the founder of the Prepared School Psych Community, which is an online community of school psychologists who get access to lots of different resources as well as support, not just for me, but my other team members. We have school psychologists who have our preschool psychs, middle school, elementary, high school, bilingual psychs, behavior psychs. No one person can be an expert in every single area of our field, right? So that's why I have a bunch of team members who help to support our community as well. And one of the things that we're going to be doing come January 2023 is we're going to be doing a book club on the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. But in addition to that book, which for a lot of you, you might have heard about that a while ago. I have to tell you, I found my old copy of it that I had underlines and Post-it notes from. They also have the 7 habits right here because I was using it. The 7 habits of highly effective teens. And I don't have the book in front of me, the other one, because it's at my house. But the 7 habits of happy kids. And the amazing thing is all 7 habits are exactly the same across all 3 books. And so what I want to do, and for those of you who have ever been part of my book clubs with school psychologists, I really do it for accountability for myself. I feel like I'm at a time where I really want to re-examine some of these habits for myself, but I've also had this book for teens sitting on my shelf for a while, and I don't know if I've ever read it. Definitely not all the way through. I might have flipped through it. I definitely have read the 7 Habits for Happy Kids many years ago. I had some interns working with me, and they actually created a whole kind of counseling group around using that book. It was really super fun. So what we're going to be doing, it's going to start in January. It's going to go through February. We're going to take 1 habit every single week. And I'm inviting people, if they want to read the book for themselves and look at more examples of how we can apply it as an adult, go ahead and get the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. If you want to look at how this could apply to the students that you work with, you can choose to buy the book for teens or the one for kids, or of course you can buy the book for all of them. I'm going to be reading all 3 of them. So my intention, what I've kind of been planning today, is how I want to approach this book club. So we'll be talking about each of the habits, and then we'll be able to have an opportunity to talk about how does that apply for us as adults, as well as maybe some of the staff that we consult with. Is there any sort of tricks or tips that we want to share with other people, but especially for those that work a lot directly with students, maybe in counseling kind of supports, what are some different resources for that as well? So that's my plan. I'm really excited about it. I'm excited to get back into the book. And there actually was just a 2020 revision of the one for grown-ups, the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. And then again, they have the teen book and the Happy Kids book as well. So if this sounds interesting to you, feel free to go ahead and go over to my website, jennyponzurek.com, and check out the stuff on the Prepared School Psych community. We are, like I mentioned, delving into this starting in January. It's going to be the 2nd week of January that we're going to get into that, because I know some people are still on break that first week of January. And it was interesting because as I was preparing for this live, I was looking at some of the habits, again, because I was preparing for the book club as well. And I was just thinking about how much these behavior tips were really lining up with some of the habits. So I just think it's really great to always get some different perspectives, a different way of looking at things, even if it's some things that we've heard about before. Just hearing it from a different way, I think, at least for me, has been really helpful in my work directly with kids or my work in a consultation role as well. So if that's something you're interested in and you're not yet part of the community, feel free to go over to jennyponzurek.com and go to the Prepared School Psych information, see if it's something that sounds interesting to you. You can always try it out and you can cancel anytime. So you're not locked in forever if you want to try it out. If you try out the community and it's not for you, you can cancel anytime. All right. So with that being said, I am going to say happy holidays to everyone, whatever you celebrate, however you're celebrating your time off from the schools. I hope you enjoy it and have a wonderful time, and I'll see everyone in January.